Now let's take a look at our last principle, which is Dependency Inversion Principle. So it means high-level module should not depend on low-level module. They should always be decoupled. So for that, let's try to create some example. And over here, we are making a request to our database, and it is always not guaranteed that the request will be successful. So we might want to do some kind of try catch. So what I'll do is I'll do try to add that, and if something fails, let's just do some exception. So what will happen if we get some kind of exception? Well, let's write it to a file, the easy way. So let's call the name errors.txt, and what we want to store inside it is toString. Alright, so like if there is some error, we are storing that to our file. But over here, there is something wrong. We mentioned earlier this post class should only be responsible to create a post. But over here, we are actually creating a file again. So we are violating the first principle. So let's just move this to a different file. So another reason we want to move this to a different file is right now it is very simple, just one liner, but it can be something like this, which is very long. So let's take care of this first. So what I'll do is I'll cut this line and let me just create a new file. And this one I'll call it error logger. Okay. Okay, now let's create a method called public void log error. And this will actually take a string that is our error. Let me just paste it over here. Let's just import this. And this is our error, so let me replace it. Okay, now let's go back to our post. And over here, we have to actually implement that error logger. So what do you want to do? Well, the thing we'll do is we'll just create some read-only. Okay, so let's instantiate our error logger and name it as error logger, and let's create a new object. Alright, so down here we can do error logger.log error, and we can pass our error. And okay, so actually let's test this out. So what I'll do is I'll just comment this out, and I'll do throw new exception. Okay, so if I try to run it, it will throw exception, so we are not printing everything. And now if I go to our file folder, we have error text. And if I open this, yep, we have our exception logged in successfully. Alright, so this seems to be working, but we are violating our final principle, which is Dependency Inversion Principle. So it says the high-level module should not depend on low-level module. But over here, we can see our high-level module, which is create post, and actually it is depending on error logger. So we are actually creating our error logger object over here, and we are using that object over here to access this method. So that means like these two things are highly dependent. They are not decoupled. And this is in violation of our final dependency inversion principle. So how do we fix this dependency issue? Well, we can do some kind of dependency injection. So let's try to do it. So let's remove this completely. And what we're going to do is, okay, let's just create protected error logger. Now let's just create a variable called error logger. Alright, so we are actually inject error logger in our constructor. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create a empty constructor. Let's just make it one-liner. And so over here we'll actually instantiate this error logger now. So it will be new error logger. Okay, that sounds cool. And over here we are getting this error because it is protected, and I don't think it is public in our error logger. So let's go back to error logger, and we have to make this class public. Okay, so now let's come back to our post. Okay, now to resolve this issue, we have to create another constructor, and we will actually pass some parameter over there. So in this constructor, we are actually injecting our error logger. So this is how we do dependency injection. So let's name it as error logger. And down here, what we'll do is we'll just assign it to our variable. Alright, so we just injected our error logger as a dependency. And now over here, we can just rename it back to error logger. And this will work perfectly fine. Yep, so we are getting some exception, and if we go back to error, this should work. Alright, so let's just uncomment this one. Alright, so now we fixed the issue in the post, so now let's do the same thing to our post. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this line, and let's go to our post, and we want to do the same thing over here, like just do try catch. Okay, so put everything in a try, and if there is something wrong, just log that error. So this error logger is actually coming from the post, because over here we have marked it as protected. We can access it outside this class. So, but if we do it as a private, we will get some error because this is not accessible. So let's go back over here and let's change it to protected so we can have access over here. And if something wrong happens over here, let's just comment it out, and let's just create some exception. It should work perfectly. Yep, so it is working. And if I uncomment it out, okay, let's see. And yep, it is working. So this example is following all 5 solid principles. So we took a look from principle number 1 to principle number 5, and our code is in compliance with all those 5 principles. So this is the general idea of solid principle. It is not too deep, but it is simple for what to understand. And hope you guys understood something about solid.